No one can take me out of this body. Just picture that for a second. Imagine a young, innocent little girl tucked securely in her own home, suddenly looking up with this deeply unsettling, unnatural smile. She's completely paralyzed by a 104-degree fever, and she whispers those exact words to her terrified family. Look, this isn't a scene from some Hollywood movie. This is a verified, deeply disturbing case file pulled directly from the dark corners of the occult. Welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through today's fascinating and, honestly, chilling analysis. We are diving deep into an anthology of 3 completely verified, real-life supernatural incidents. And hey, our goal here isn't just to scare you. We want to impartially analyze the profound dangers of meddling with forces that science simply cannot explain. We're going to break down the timelines, the entities involved, and the grave mistakes made in each of these incidents. So, let's jump right in.
Alright, starting us off is Case File 1, Ghost Game on the Roof.
So, this all started innocently enough on a super hot summer afternoon, right around March. You've got a group of kids, probably influenced by some horror show they watched on TV, and they sneak up to their roof to play a makeshift seance. They're using marigold petals and a single lit candle. Pretty standard kids stuff, right? But notice how incredibly fast this timeline escalates. At 3 p.m., smack in the middle of their chanted ritual, there's this sudden, completely unnatural gust of wind that violently sweeps across the roof and scatters the petals everywhere. The kids absolutely panic and run. Fast forward to midnight, the youngest sister wakes up screaming, pointing at some unseen entity in her room, crying that it's trying to take her away. By 8 a.m. the very next morning, she is hit with an unbreakable 104-degree fever. Her body becomes totally paralyzed, and get this, she becomes impossibly heavy. Like so heavy that neither her father nor her uncle can even lift her off the floor to take her to the hospital.
Now, this is where things go completely off the rails. Modern medicine completely fails this family. The local doctor gives her an injection, absolutely nothing happens. They bring in a local temple priest, and he is literally thrown across the room by an unseen force. And then, while the little girl is hiding under her bed, she does the unthinkable. Her father reaches under to gently pull her out, and she grabs his arm with this insane supernatural strength. She literally rips off a piece of his flesh with her teeth and eats it right in front of him, laughing hysterically the entire time. Medical professionals, the priest, everyone just threw their hands up. They had no idea what to do.
So desperate for answers, the family takes a train back to their ancestral home to find an Agori granduncle, and he reveals a twist that nobody saw coming. The violent entity possessing the girl, it wasn't a random demon at all. It was actually their Cool Davy. Now, if you're not familiar, a Cool Davy is basically an ancestral family deity, fiercely protective of the bloodline. You see, the government quarters the family was living in were unknowingly built directly over a forgotten graveyard. So what was happening was, the Cool Davy had forcefully possessed the girl's body to physically fight off the graveyard spirits that were trying to claim her. That violent thrashing, the supernatural strength, that was quite literally a divine entity at war within a human vessel.
The granduncle quickly realizes there's only one way to save this little girl. He has to pull the entity out of her. But the cost for doing this is absolutely immense. He locks himself in a sealed room with her for 3 grueling days. 3 whole days of performing an intense, dark arts ritual enveloped in heavy smoke. Now, he does successfully transfer the spirits into an earthen pot, but the toll on him is absolute. Just 5 days later, the granduncle suffers sudden, complete paralysis and passes away. He literally sacrificed his own soul and body, making a deal with these entities to take him instead of the young girl.
Moving right along to Case File 2, Deal with Demonic Powers.
So we're transitioning here from an accidental haunting to a deliberate, highly orchestrated occult deal. We have a young man who's really drawn to dark magic. He gets introduced to a Malvi, a dark occultist, who summons 3 terrifying entities directly in front of him. First, you have the Jinn, which is capable of granting immense wealth and social status. Then, the Jannat, an entity that fulfills these intense, dark desires and lust. And finally, a third, controlling entity whose sole purpose is to manipulate his thoughts and suppress his fear of the other 2. When the occultist asked the boy which one he wanted, he arrogantly just replied, "If I want them, I want all of them."
Well, he gets exactly what he asked for. Almost overnight, his career skyrockets, his desires are met. But, as we know, limitless power always demands a horrific price. Soon enough, these entities start demanding a physical toll. This young man is actually forced to carve open his own arm and drink his own blood on a daily basis just to feed the demonic forces attached to him.
He completely spirals into madness. He starts wandering graveyards at night, having conversations with unseen spirits, utterly trapped in this dark cycle that he just cannot escape.
But honestly, here's the most chilling revelation of this entire case file: the devastating gap between illusion and reality. This guy fully believed he was becoming a powerful occult master, commanding these dark forces. But the reality? It was something entirely different. His own best friend, Vinay, had actually orchestrated the entire thing with the Malvi. They weren't giving him power at all. They were basically fattening his soul to use him as a human sacrifice in a dark ritual. No joke. He was only saved when his uncle, who happened to be a master of protective rituals, stepped in. And even then, it took a massive pilgrimage to a specific temple in Ujjain, where a shape-shifting deity finally severed his demonic ties. But those physical scars on his arms, those remained forever.
Let's look at our final story today. Case File 3, The Cursed Railway Station. We're shifting gears from the dense urban underground to a desolate, isolated railway forest. Just imagine being stranded out there. A young railway worker gets a late-night call to tow a broken train engine. And despite repeated, urgent warnings from the veteran engineers and even his own driver, he decides he's going to play the hero. He forces his way deep into this pitch-black, notoriously haunted forest area where the engine is stalled out. The atmosphere out there is just completely claustrophobic. So he arrives at the broken engine and radios for backup, but the transmission he gets back completely seals his fate. The voice on the radio just says, "No one will come to help you until 4 a.m." And the veteran crew that's already on the broken train, they absolutely refuse to step outside. So now they are all completely trapped in the middle of a dark forest known for violent supernatural occurrences with hours to kill before dawn. Now you know how it is. Boredom and ignorance are a wildly dangerous combination. Completely ignoring the dire warnings of the veteran crew who, remember, are refusing to leave the engine cab, our young worker decides he's just going to wander off alone. He gets on a video call with his girlfriend and casually walks over to an empty, glass-paneled signal tower to show off the creepy view. So imagine being on that video call as he is giving her a virtual tour of this completely empty, isolated tower. His girlfriend's voice suddenly drops into a panicked whisper. She says, "Did you bring someone with you? There is someone standing behind you." She actually spots a looming, 6-foot-tall dark entity perfectly reflected in the tower's glass mirror right behind him. He turns around, sees the shadow figure with his own eyes, and just flees in absolute terror back to the train cab. But of course, the horror doesn't end just because he leaves the forest. He unknowingly brings an attachment home with him. For days afterwards, he is haunted by this agonizing, screeching sound of heavy iron scraping against iron right inside his own apartment. He starts suffering from horrific dreams of mutilated accident victims demanding to know why he entered their cursed territory. The psychological toll becomes so incredibly severe that one night he unknowingly sleepwalks miles away from his secure apartment, waking up completely disoriented back inside that exact haunted, glass-paneled railway cabin.
Okay, so what does this all mean? Let's talk about the terrifying lesson.
Look, these aren't just spooky campfire stories. They are very real cautionary case studies about human arrogance and unseen forces. So here are your core takeaways from today's explainer. First off, never ever ignore local folklore or explicit warnings. In that railway case, multiple professionals warned the worker, yet he walked right into a trap anyway. Second, the occult always extracts a severe toll. Whether it's the horrific self-mutilation we saw in the demonic deal or the tragic sacrifice of the Agori uncle in our first case, the price is always paid in blood or sanity. And finally, tampering with the unknown leaves permanent scars. You just cannot casually invite spirits through a roof game or dabble in black magic without permanently altering your life's trajectory. Which leaves us with a deeply unsettling final thought. We so often view the supernatural as something distant, right? Locked away in horror movies or isolated forests. But from innocent games with flower petals to seeking quick shortcuts for success, the threshold between our world and theirs is actually terrifyingly thin. So I want you to ask yourself, are you unknowingly playing a dangerous game too? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and seriously, stay safe out there.